Good evening, and welcome to tonight's show. I am your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and it is truly an honor to be before you this evening. Um, Today is a special day because Saturday is my birthday. I turned the big 5-4, and tonight is my birthday show. And what a way to celebrate my birthday than to get educated about, get some financial literacy, and get educated about credit. So tonight's guest is going to give us some tips and some information for us to learn how to maintain our credit score and just have good credit. Now, before we bring her on, I want to take the time out to say a couple of things that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for my kids. I'm thankful that I'm still here because we know through COVID, it has just, we've all lost loved ones. And I'm thankful that I'm still here and still breathing. I'm thankful for my kids and my family. I'm also thankful for you, the viewers. We have been doing the show ever since December, and we've only missed one show, which was the inauguration day, which was January the 20th, if I'm correct. But I want to thank you because your comments keep us going. We're here live every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And if it's your first time viewing us tonight on the show, I'd like to say welcome to the show. We're here to inspire and educate you every Wednesday at 7. If you are a returning viewer, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your words of encouragement and your support keeps us going. I also want to tell you one more thing that I'm thankful for today, and that's tonight's guest. Tonight's guest is very special to me because we were raised in the same subdivision. We went to the same elementary and high school, Columbia High School in Decatur. We graduated the class of 1985. And one thing I can say about tonight's guest is she is still as genuine today, all these years later, as she was when we were in school. She is a gem. And one thing she doesn't mind doing is sharing the knowledge that she has. She wants everybody to win. She is an author, she is a wealth empowerment coach, and she is a financial advisor. Help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Terrell Dinkins.
Hi, Tina.
How are you?
Right, this is so special. This is so special to hang out with my friend, my lifetime friend. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Listen, this book, The Secrets of the 800 Plus Club, I'm telling you, it was a eye opener. A lot of the book reminded me of some stuff that I forgot,
Okay.
wasn't using. But then over the years, so much has changed, especially
Mhm.
about credit. And
Right.
there were just some things that I just didn't know. And you see, I got my little book in my book. I keep this by my bed. But I just
Oh, wow.
thank you so much for saying yes and being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
So excited to have you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And a huge shout out to all our Columbia High School people that may be on with us tonight.
Yeah, we say deck in the house, Decatur's in the house,
That's right.
CHS in the house. Yeah,
Yes to the CHS.
CHS. And
Yeah,
you just told our age.
I know.
But it's okay. We're healthy and
Yes,
alive.
yes, yes. And we don't look it.
There you go. That's right.
Well, I want to start the interview tonight by you telling the viewers a little bit about. I told them a little bit about you, but I'll let you tell them a little bit more about yourself.
So, I'm going to tell you the thing I'm most proud of. I am most proud of I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. I'm so proud about being a mom and teaching them what I know so that they will get a head start. Because I feel like because of what I love, my passion gave me a head start. So I'm proud of being a mom and being able to give them a head start. And I'm also a wife. I've been married for over 24 years. He
Yeah.
says, okay, do we not have to talk about finances? It's too much. I've been married for over 24 years.
Okay.
So I'm proud of creating a family unit,
Yeah.
and I'm proud of the work that I do. I am at a point in my life where it's important that I help people, and it's important, and I'm very passionate about changing and closing the wealth gap,
That's right.
because it's huge and it has expanded, especially with the pandemic. So all of the things that I talk about, the things that I write about are helpful um, pieces. I said that if I ever write any other books I write in the future, you will never see my picture on the front of the book, because the books for are not about me, but
Mhm.
about the subject matter to help other people. So that's why I have different themes for the front of my books, but you will never see me on the front cover of one of my books. I shouldn't say that. Maybe it'll change later, but but right now is all about teaching and walking in my purpose. So that's me. And of course, you did a great introduction. I am an author, a wealth empowerment speaker. I want to empower people to build wealth. That is important, because you know what, it brings you comfort. Wealth
It does.
creates financial freedom for you.
Mhm.
And I have two companies. I own a registered investment advisor firm, and I have my company, One Bucket Nation, that
Yes.
I am very proud of, because that company was created with me thinking about how can I create a nation
Mhm.
of wealth builders, a nation of people filling their money buckets. And that's how the name of that company came about. One Bucket Nation, a nation of wealth builders, a nation of people with money raining in their buckets. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And under that umbrella, you have One Bucket Nation financial advisors.
So actually it's doesn't stand for One Bucket. There's a little bit yeah, people think, well, I'll just say this and then we'll talk a little bit about One Bucket Nation. But so my first initial is O. Okay.
Okay.
So when I started that firm, I had just turned 50.
Okay.
And I was telling myself that day, I am beginning a new BN phase in my life. OBN. And I'm like, I'm really beginning this new phase at 50 years old. And it just so happens that I had this other company, One Bucket Nation. And when I said I'm beginning this new OBN, I was like, oh, that's the appropriate name that I should use for my other company. So,
Okay.
oh no,
Okay.
that's giving you the inside scoop of it. So
Yeah, 'cause I thought it was One Bucket Nation. I thought
yeah.
everything just one bucket.
Yeah. So it worked. It really did
Yeah,
work.
it
But
did.
starting a practice at 50 and
Mhm.
in leaving, I worked for a firm in Buckhead, and I was like, you know what, I'm 50 years old. I want to do more. I want to write more financial roadmaps for clients. So I decided, and actually, everything I was kind of forcing. I wasn't planning on opening up my own firm. I was interviewing with other companies, and they, had issues with me being an author. And I was like, okay, God, give me guidance. So
That's
I
right.
opened up my own firm.
That's right.
Yeah. I didn't want my message blocked.
Eh,
So it was easier for me to go out on my own.
yes, yes. Now I'm going to tell all the viewers, get a piece of paper and get a pen, because Terrell is going to drop some nuggets. You're not going to remember it all. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you need to replay it, it'll be there for you. But take some notes, take some notes, take some notes. So, so that's how you create now. Now, is that how you created One Bucket Nation, or One Bucket Nation was already created before you did the financial advising
So
firm?
One Bucket Nation has been around. Yeah, I already had One Bucket Nation, and
Okay.
so I left a firm in 2016. And get this, so this is why I knew it was meant for me to have my own firm. So in 2017, um, on I started thinking about I need to go ahead and do this on my own. Normally, it would take you months to open up planning firm.
Mhm.
So January 31st, I said, you know what, after, interviewing, talking to other companies, January 31st, I said, I'm going to do this on my own. So I hired a consultant firm to help me, set up my company. And they were like, it's going to take a while because you have to submit to the state. Anyway, in 2 weeks, February 14th, 2017, the state approved my firm.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. And I
Wow.
was like, on Valentine's Day, we call it the day of love. I said, God was loving me and giving me favor. And it was done in 2 weeks. But
Wow.
One Book Nation has been my baby. As a matter of fact, I when I worked for the other firm
Mhm.
and I wrote my first book, they were like, you need to open up a different company for this. So
Right.
they were the ones who said, you need to open up a company to
So let's talk.
write and speak through.
So let's talk about your first book. Your first book is One Bucket at a Time.
Those buckets. So One Bucket Nation, one bucket at a time. Now that I purposely did my first book about buckets because if you
Mhm.
look at the book, I got it here. The book is shows on the front cover money raining in your buckets. I really wanted to put dollar signs raining in the bucket, but I couldn't get it through compliance. So, because I was working for a firm and I couldn't
Right.
get that through compliance. So we were like, I wanted to rain, people know what it means to rain money.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I decided I wanted to rain money or rain in your bucket. So um, my son said, Mommy, you just kind of went crazy with this bucket thing. But, there's something biblical to the buckets. If you start reading about, what's biblical about a bucket, there's something spiritual about a bucket.
Mhm.
Because it brings abundance. So
Yes.
the bucket represents abundance.
Now, your first book is A Woman's Guide to Creating Wealth. So tell them just a little bit about your book. We're not going to tell them all because we want them to buy the book.
I won't think about that. Yeah. Well, I'll just say I wrote that book. When I worked at this firm, most of my clients were women. And I would always teach my clients the importance of creating multiple buckets of money throughout their lifetime so that it would last them a lifetime. I hadn't planned on being an author, but I had a friend to come and visit me at my firm,
Mhm.
and I started writing on the whiteboard these buckets and how it's important for women to start filling these buckets. And she was like, Terrell, why is this information just for your clients? You need to make sure you need to write a book about these
Mhm.
buckets so that everyone will hear about these buckets. So that was a whole premise and purpose behind the book, is to share with women the importance of starting to fill these buckets,
Mhm.
because we're really born with a blessing and a curse. And the blessing for women is that we will probably outlive our male counterparts.
Mhm.
Longevity is a
Yeah.
blessing and a curse. And the curse is we may outlive our male counterparts, which means we may be alone. So it's important that we make sure that we have our house in order in case we're alone due to longevity, if we're alone due to divorce, or if we're alone because we just never got married.
Right. Right. And that's so important
It
because
is.
we don't know what the day is going to bring, and life changes sometimes drastically. And so
Exactly.
you want to do the things in the beginning. You want to be proactive instead of reactive, and it's really about your finances. You want to get that together just in case something happens. I'm going to tell you a quick story right quick.
No, I
So
want to hear.
my son is in the military, and I was, my mom was a little ill, and he's real close to my mom. So I was telling him, make sure that you save your money because you never know when I have to call you and tell you when you have to pick up, just quickly come home. Well, years went by, and our health deteriorated, and I had to make that call.
Right.
And at the spur of the moment, he had to pick up and he had to come home. And so when he did come home, I said, now you see why it's important not to blow through all your money. You
That's
you
right.
have to have a financial plan because you never know when the family or anybody's going to make that phone call, and you have to do, I call it a pivot, where you have to quickly pivot and get on a different direction. And I said, think about it. If you didn't have the money, you would have hesitated and coming home, or you might not have been able to come home. And
Right.
when I tell you, after that experience, he has saved so much
Well, you
money.
know what? 2020 has been the year of the
Yeah.
pivot where people had
Mhm.
to re-examine their life.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably why my book, this new book, has done so well. I
Mhm.
was on the Amazon's bestsellers list on the credit ratings and repair. Got to out of 100, got up to number 9
Wow.
out of 100. Yeah, and I think people were sitting and thinking about, I have time on my hands.
Mhm.
Um, what do I need to do to get my financial house in order?
Right, right, yeah. And I'm gonna tell you, I told you this on Monday, but when it says secrets of the 800 plus club, and um, sometimes you wonder if it's achievable, right? From what you've been through. I mean, personally, what you've been through, and you've had challenges with credit. You wonder if this is attainable for me. Well,
Right,
on Monday, I got a phone call from a family member, and I
right.
was telling her about your book. And she was like, "Oh, yeah, all that's true." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Oh, that's true." She said, "Because what did she call it?" I said, "A unicorn." She said, "Tina, I'm a unicorn."
I love it.
What? She said, "Tina, I'm a unicorn." And it just, now that I know somebody personally that is a unicorn,
Yeah.
I was like, holding
It
it
is a
dear.
thing. You can do it, really is. And there, and people that are unicorns, and I guess we need to define what a unicorn
Yeah.
is.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so I and I should have brought my horn downstairs. I have a unicorn. Ah, I have a horn. Um, but the unicorns are people who consistently
Mhm.
maintain a credit score above 800 and above, where
Okay.
they're consistently there. Where if you go to FICO and you look at the chart, their scores are consistently at 800 or above.
Okay.
And people are like, well, a 750 score is great too. It is great, but let me tell you why I push 800 and above.
Okay.
So if you have a 750 credit score and you drop 10 points, now you're no longer in that excellent credit realm.
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
score is lower. And when you go below 750, you're charged more than if you're above. But if you have a credit score, 830, 840, 800, you
Mhm.
drop 50 points, you're still in that window of good credit.
Right.
So the point that I make is that the 800 gives you wiggle room. It gives you wiggle room to mess up because your score will change.
Mhm.
Even when you look at, and I think it's Experian.
Mhm.
Is it Experian? No, maybe it's TransUnion. That there now you can, and I can't remember if it's Experian or TransUnion, but
Uh-huh.
you can check your score daily now.
Oh, really? So
Yeah,
that's
because this is changing daily. So your score will fluctuate throughout the month. You
Mhm.
may drop 10 points because of something happened. So
Mhm.
if I got an 840 credit score, I drop 10 points. Okay, I'm still above 800, but you can't drop when your score is 700 or 740. You're going to now be charged a different rate than someone who has an 800.
So let's talk about that, because in your book you state that your credit score determines the type of mail that comes to your mailbox, the price you pay for homes, cars, and even if you want to get a business loan. So
Mhm.
let's talk about how important these three digits are.
Well, here's the thing. I say those your 3-digit credit score now is as important as your social security number. I
Mhm.
had this young, actually it was a Comcast guy who came to my house recently,
Mhm.
and we got, started talking about credit scores. And he said one of the mistakes that he made growing up, and our parents were notorious for this. He said my parents was like, pay for everything cash. And
Mhm.
he said, make sure you save up your money and
Mhm.
pay for everything cash. And the mistake that our parents made was that we now need credit.
Right.
If people that have no credit are in just as bad of a situation as people that have bad credit, because you got to establish credit. So this young guy said that that was a big mistake that he made, was listening to his parents and using cash for everything. He had no credit, so he had to establish credit. And he was a unicorn, but he was just telling me, yeah, he was I was just so impressed with this young Comcast guy who came to my house, and he pulled out his phone and showed me his credit score, and we were just, vibing on his 800 plus credit score. But he said it was, it was a detriment to him to not have any credit. Because he think about it. If And here's what I mean by determining the type of mail that comes your house. My You get offers all the time. I had one sitting on my desk, an offer for 0% interest rates for the next 18 months, where because I have an 800 plus credit score. So you get credit card offers that come to your house where you pay zero in interest. Now imagine a person, and I know people like this because I'm working on their plans. I look at things. There are people that are paying 20-29% interest rates on their credit cards. I was running some numbers for a client, actually, just the other day, and they had a interest, a loan that was like 14%. That was costing them, I forgot, I think I calculated it was like $10,000 to carry that loan.
Wow.
It was a big loan. I said, if you carry this this loan over that period, it's going to cost you more money. So people that are unicorns, you people bow at your feet. They want your business. They want you to do business with them, even if you pay your credit card off in full. So I pay my credit card off in full, but they still want my business. And here's why. Credit card companies will win on both ends. They win with me using the card, and they will doubly win if I use the card and don't pay it off. So now they hit me with interest rate.
Right.
But they also win on the other side when I swipe my card, because when I swipe my card, the merchant has to pay merchant fees. So they want me, and they want me, and they'll tempt me with a lower interest rate or a credit card with a lower interest rates and hope that I'll carry a balance on it.
Right.
But they will also want to encourage me to use it with other merchants because they get paid. They get paid. But it really hits the consumer because you have big companies that will offer perks to people like myself for using their credit cards, and then unfortunately it hits people in the pocket that pay cash. It hits them in the pocket that pay cash because they're now paying more for those items versus me using my credit card. I use a credit card, I pay it off, but then I turn around and get points.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
So you get is advantages.
There are great advantages. And then the fact too that they may say, hey, we want you to use this card, and we're not going to charge you interest.
Right.
I literally had a couple of offers, 0% interest for 18 months. If you have poor credit, you're not going to get a 0% offer. Or when I bought my car recently, well, it's not recent. When I financed my car, 1% interest rate. So now I can get. So here's how we have to be strategic. You get a 1% interest rate on a used car, financing a used car, because I didn't buy a new car. I'm not going to buy a new car. On a used car, and you turn around and you can use your cash. So you're doing OPM, other people's money, to get this car at a 1% interest rate, and you can take your money and invest it. So we have to be strategic with our money, but that's because I got the 1% because of the credit score. So that's why it's so important that we work on that credit, because having the poor credit costs you money. And it particularly hurts, our young people that come out of college with debt, and then they have nobody taught them, and they get credit card offers in school. They run up the credit, and now they're out of school with the student loan debt and the credit card debt.
Right.
And that cycle starts. It starts.
Now let me ask you a question. Ron Wortham is on tonight. Hey, Ron, and he had a question. He said, "Are point cards really worth it?"
Well, they're worth it for me when I don't have to pay an annual fee for them.
Okay.
It really. So here's the thing, and I use them for. I save up my points. I mean, think about it. You have if you get a 1-to-1 point, and you get a credit card, because I have an American Express and I don't pay annual fees. And that's one thing I talk about in the book. Don't pay annual fees on a card. Why wouldn't it be worth me having, ramping up 50,000 points? Now I got $500 to spend how I want to. So I take those 50,000 points, and now I can use those for holiday shopping. I got my eye on a charm from Tiffany's that I want to get. I just for the frivolous stuff for me, I like going to the spa. I take the points and go to the spa. I'm doing a project in my backyard. We got a big old grill outside on my deck. Ron, I have a nice grill on my deck, and that grill was bought with points, and it didn't cost me anything.
Wow.
It didn't cost me anything because I paid the card off in full.
Right.
But I got the points for using the card. So I use the card for everything. I use my credit card daily, and then I pay it off. I get the points, and now I got a nice grill, or I'm spending a day at the spa somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at a card with points, but I was kind of confused because there's so many cards out there, with no annual
a lot of them have annual fees, but you don't want to. It doesn't, unless you are a big traveler. Now, there are some people that travel a lot, that they're on a plane a lot, and that may be the only situation where I will pay an annual fee on a card, because that annual fee, my travel will far exceed the cost of that annual fee. But other than that, but you got to work on your credit to get those cards that have good rates.
Right. But let me ask you this. So you were talking about the 1-for-1 point. That's what was confusing for me, because they have so many different perks. Or are you saying that you have to figure out which perk, like you were saying, if you're a traveler, you're going to get a card with the perks more towards traveling?
Well, I like my favorite card. Look, I'm not plugging them, but I do like American Express. So, and what I mean by 1-for-1 is that if I have 50,000 points, then I can get $500. It's not 50, it's $500 worth of, and I like getting gift cards on mine. Or you can actually take those points and pay your balance on your card. Like sometimes they'll say you can take X amount of points and pay off an item on your credit card.
Okay.
So there are great perks to using the card and paying it off, and and getting the points.
Now, you mentioned earlier about students getting cards while they're in school. So Ron asked another question. He said, is it worth it for young people out of college to get a credit card? If so, what kind? But I'm going to put a twist to it, because I know me and you talked on Monday about starting them off while they're in college with a card. So talk a little bit about that.
So, and I talk about this in my book too. That is, and my son is an example. So he is a sophomore in school, because my goal is that I want this child to come out of school ahead of his peers without a lot of the student loan debt. So that, because that's a pet peeve of mine. I actually talked about that on another subject matter, but also to have his credit established. So I told him, I want you to create a banking relationship. Go to the bank, go to a bank maybe that you have on school, and create a banking relationship and get a student credit card. So they'll give you a student credit card. Again, no annual fee for the student credit card, so they can start establishing credit, because you won't have any credit. So you start establishing credit early. Here's why: because your credit history makes up your credit score. So if you start establishing that credit early, and again, you got to teach your kids, Ron, you can't teach them to, get these credit cards and rack up debt, but you have to teach them the importance of zero balances. And my son learned that. You know, he was like, "Oh, mommy, oh gosh, I need to, cut it up." I said, "No, you just need to learn how to monitor it."
Right.
Because what he was doing, he was using it. And he was like, "I can't get my score to go up." And I say it's because of your utilization rate. You got a small limit, and you're using the card up to his limit, so you're not going to get your score up. So, but anyway, he got this card early so he can start the history part. Because that makes up your source. So start your credit history. By the time he graduates, he will have some established credit. And then also too, making parents that have good credit, not parents that have bad credit, but parents that have good credit, they can make their child an authorized user on their credit card. So you can make them an authorized user. Only mommy, daddy, if you have good credit. Otherwise, it will ruin it'll mess up it'll have the opposite effect. But if you have good credit, you can, help that student, help your child get a student card and then make them an authorized user on your credit card.
Right.
Don't give it to them.
Don't give it to them.
Don't give it to him, but make him an authorized user. Right. And I did that. He was like, "Mama, look at my credit score; it's going up."
Yeah. That actually works. I had a real estate client not too long ago, and she had just graduated from law school, and she had over $800,000 in debt. She had a lot of debt.
Law school is probably worse than medical school. It's probably worse than medical school, I think.
Yeah. And so her mom did that. Her mom, we created a plan for her because she wanted to buy a house. So her mom, one of the things we had suggested was the mom had excellent credit, and she put her on as a user.
Right.
She didn't give her the card, and within 6 months, she's in a house.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
So we have one more question. I'm gonna put this one on the screen. This is from Kamaria. She says she has a Navy Federal credit card line of $25,000 with a 9% interest rate. How should I spend that and pay off to increase my score?
I'm sorry. She has a credit card line of 20 with a 9. Is that does she have a credit card balance, or is that a line of credit or available line? How should I spend that and pay off? So it must be she must have a balance of 25,000.
Okay.
How should I spend that and pay off to increase my? I'm confused, but I think you want to. I mean, that's a decent. I will say this right here, and I talk a little bit about this in the book. So say if she has
available. I'm sorry. Yeah, she said available.
Oh, she has $25,000 available to her. Does she have a zero balance on it?
Kamaria, do you have a zero balance?
I mean, if she's got a zero balance, and I mean, if she doesn't need, she can probably, with $25,000, I would use a little bit and pay. I would use it and pay it off.
She said yes.
Yeah, I would use it and pay it off, and making sure that I don't, people always say, I'm giving away all the secrets, Tina. People always say, keep your limit over under 30%. So unicorns, we keep ours, below like that 10% window. So I would use some of it and pay it off. Just to show that she's using the card.
Yeah, let's talk about the utilization rate, because you mentioned that before. Can you define a little bit more? What is it and how important is it?
Okay, so utilization rate means how much of your limit that you are using. And I'll use hypothetically, we talk about, just say if you had a $20,000 credit card.
Okay.
Times 10. And you use 10% of that, then your utilization rate is 10%. I'm sorry, if you use $2,000, then you have a 10% utilization rate.
Okay.
So a lot of people will say, oh, if you got a $20,000 card times 0.30, well, you can use up to $6,000, but and that's 30%. We always hear about this 30%. Oh, you can try to keep it under 30%. Okay, that's $6,000 balance. using a 30% utilization rate of a $20,000 limit. So
Okay.
unicorns are going to say, I'm not going to use 30%. That's the number we always hear. I'm going to keep that number below 10%. So a
Below.
unicorn may use times 0.09, may use $1,800 of that $20,000 limit and
Wow.
pull it off.
Wow.
So that changes it. So what happens with unicorns? They have all this available credit to them, but they only use a small amount of it.
Right. Right. But
Yeah,
is there when they need it?
it's there when they need it. Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
they're not using it. So what happens a lot of times, people get excited. Oh man, they raised my limit, and I'm going to
Mhm.
go out and I'm going to swipe. And that's what happened with my young son. I'm teaching him, just because you get a limit increase, which is good, you want them to eventually to increase it, but you can't go swiping. And he had to learn, but he has mommy to say, hey, we're not going to do that.
Right. Right. And this is why we're not
Yeah,
going
I'm going to go shopping, and that's what happens with kids in school. They
Yeah.
get these credit cards, and they go shopping, or they get them a nice wardrobe, getting some new tires on their cars. So, you just have to be careful with how much you use of that credit, and that's the utilization rate. How much are you utilizing of the limit that's available to you?
Okay. Okay. And unicorns use 10% or less.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. And
not 30 that
not
we always
30,
hear
not
about,
50.
not 50.
The one word that I'm hearing that you haven't said, but I'm hearing is
What?
discipline. Unicorns are very disciplined.
We're so in tune with our credit. We started we started, we use a budget. We are into our credit, we're into our finances. And
Right.
that's what you'll find. And I have clients that are unicorns, and they fit that profile. They're,
Mhm.
making sure they're paying their credit card down. They're not using a whole lot of it. They bought my book and know those little dirty little secrets that I have in the book. And I'm not going to spill on this. You got to get.
No, we're not. We're
I'm
not.
not
We're
going to spill
not.
the dirty little secret, but they know those little secrets that can really turn that score around really fast. Speaking of which, I did it last month. I chapter 8 in the book, The Dirty Little Secret. Uh, I actually said, let me do this with one of my cars to see what happens, and had my score to just pop up really
Oh wow.
fast over the yeah. Mhm.
So let me ask you this though. I like to, once I had paid my credit card off, I was so proud. I didn't want to use it again. So, I wanted to keep it in a drawer for when I needed it.
Mhm.
Is that bad, or should I use it every month?
No, you don't have to use it every month, but you need to use it every now and then.
Hmm.
Because what happens if you don't use the card, sometimes then companies will close them out. I've had, cars they were closed up because I didn't use the cars. Um, so I've had cars that were closed. So you want to use them every now and then. I have to remember certain, cards that I have in my wallet. I think one company lowered my limit because I didn't really use the cars. So I do try
Right.
to use some of them every now and then.
Now, talk a little bit about this because when I read this part of the book, I thought this was real interesting.
What's that?
You were saying in the book that when you pay off an account, sometimes it's not good to just close it.
You should never close them.
Okay.
So here's why you should not close them. So when you close out, say if you had a credit card and
Mhm.
you had a $10,000 balance on it, and you finally paid off that $10,000 balance, and you were like, hallelujah, I got a zero balance on this credit card that I have a $10,000 limit on, and you close it out. What you've done at that point is that you've now taken away your utilization, or you've taken away your available credit.
Okay.
So you've taken away that $10,000 that's available to you. So say if you had that $10,000 credit card that had a $10,000 limit on it, and you had
Mhm.
another card that had $10,000.
Right.
So you got a total of $20,000 that's available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're over. So if you only use one of those cards, say if you and I'm going to use I got my calculator out here now. So
Okay.
say you use $2,000 divided by your $20,000. Okay, I got to use a calculator. So now, so you use 2,000. I should be able to do that in my head. So you got $2,000, and you have these two credit cards, and if you got $20,000 available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So now you got a $10,000 utilization rate. But
Right.
if you close out one of those cards and you use $2,000, or what is that? Now you got 20% utilization rate. 22,000 divided by
Okay.
10,000. So now you've pushed your utilization rate to 20%.
Right. Right. Because you got rid of one of those
You
accounts.
got rid of one of those cards.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So pay it off. Don't have to close it. Just
Don't
be
close.
disciplined.
No. But a long time ago, we were like, oh, I'm gonna close this card up. You get on the phone, you call the credit card company, I want to close this
Yeah.
card up. Because you were
Yeah.
just so happy that you paid it off.
Right. 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 And I didn't want those phone calls
And you don't
anymore.
have phone calls. You were excited. I got this thing paid down. I'm gonna, I want to close this card up. So no, we don't do that.
I'm gonna give you another question from Kamari. I'm gonna put it on the screen. She said, "Is the goal to be at zero at the end of the month, or just stay below 10%?"
You know what? So that's why I want you to read chapter 8, chapter 8 in the book. It depends, because you can it depends on when you pay that card. And I want you to go by the book and read chapter 8. It's called Dirty Little Secret.
Okay.
Because it depends on when you pay your card. And that's the dirty little secret. I call it the money chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a money chapter.
And tell them where they can get the book at.
You can get the book, and if you want an autographed copy of the book, go to onebucketnation.com. Go to onebucketnation.com and you can get the book. It's on your screen, onebucketnation.com. And there I will autograph the book. You can also find the book at Barnes and Noble. Actually, depending on where you are, you can go to inside of Barnes and Noble bookstores and get a copy of the book. You can also find the book on Amazon. And I think it's Amazon Prime, so they have a sale on the book right now.
All right.
So if you want an autograph, you can get it from One Bucket Nation. But if you want to, get one on sale right now, they have it on sale at Amazon.
Okay, and I think we had one more question. I'm trying to make sure I get everybody's question.
Okay.
Oh, here's a good one. Okay. Ron asks, what do you think people it says, what do you think people should use the PPP loans for to help their credit scores?
I'm not going to get into PPP. I am not an expert on the PPP loan. That's where you need to go talk to your bookkeeper or your accountant to deal with that PPP loan. Because I just heard some people got those loans and that didn't qualify for the loan. So I've heard people are now getting GoFundMe accounts because they've gotten in trouble.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I saw a girl that was trying to raise money to pay back the loan because she shouldn't have gotten the loan. So I'm going to steer clear of the subject of
let's talk about student loans and your credit. I think that is a very interesting topic. The kids are out of school, college right about now. And I think they need to understand that the student loans can impact their credit.
It really can. So, I just put this quote on my Facebook page. I was reading an article. It was the economic state of Black America.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a startling statistic. It said, that when African Americans, when we graduate from college, after 20 years, 95% of the balances on our student loans are still outstanding compared to 6% of our Caucasian counterparts.
Wow.
And what happens is that student loan will interfere with you being able to purchase property for yourself.
Mhm.
Having a balance, a still outstanding balance 20 years later, which means now you've incurred accrued interest on that student loan.
Yeah.
Now you don't have money to start. 20 years later, you're in your 40s. Now, you're it's interfering with you having to save for retirement.
Mhm.
So that student loan in and of itself creates this huge wealth gap in our communities, because some kids don't even think about it. I had this one young lady say to me, and it was so sad. That's why I say, parents need to be educated too.
Right.
That she wanted to go to this one school, and the school was extremely expensive.
Mhm.
And her mom's like, "Oh, baby, don't worry, you can get along. We'll worry about that later." And it bothered her because later it was here, and
Mhm.
now she's having to deal with that student loan. And I also did a little Facebook survey, and I asked people what was one of their biggest financial regrets. Overwhelmingly, people talked about getting unnecessary student loans,
Oh wow.
because Sally Mae, people still have Sally Mae on their backs,
Yeah.
and they're in their 40s and 50s, still having to worry about student loans. So
Right.
I think it's important that, and I always say this, we don't need to get in a whole bunch of debt for an undergraduate degree. And there are, and I go deep into I talk about student loans in our school. We can utilize, junior colleges, but I think we get so wrapped up into the school pride, but
Mhm.
pride doesn't pay bills.
That's
We
true.
get so wrapped up in, I want to go to this school, such and such and such went here, not thinking about the financial ramifications of the pride and the unity of it. Yeah, it's great, but after the fact. And I think too, me coming out of school, when I came out of school, I had very little debt, very little student loan debt. But if I say how much, people would probably scream, but it was because we were poor.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
I looked cute, but we didn't have any money. So I went to
Mhm.
school, and plus my mom was a widow. So I
Mhm.
came out of school with very little student loan debt. But I realized, me coming out of school with a small amount of student loan debt, that it put me leaps and bounds ahead of my peers, that I was able to start investing immediately. I was able to get my first house at 26 years old.
Right.
So it puts you, it sets you back.
Yeah.
And my son tells me about some of the students that get student loans, and they go out, and I mean, just get big ones because it's available to them.
Mhm.
Get big student loans, they go shopping, they live off the money. Um, and we're not preparing ourselves in advance of, okay, if you go to this school, what is it going to look like? And
Right.
those are the crucial conversations. I know you wanted, you had your mind set on, your heart set on going to XYZ school, but what is it going to look like when you graduate?
Right.
Are you getting any scholarships? Did mommy and daddy putting money away? Mommy and daddy may not have had money to put away for you to go to school.
Right.
So what is that going to look like? Maybe, and, when I was growing up, I was accepted at 4 schools.
Mhm.
Um, and again, it was, when I think about, I was just always very passionate about not having debt, even at a young age.
Right.
But I was accepted at 4 schools, and at 18, and I probably shouldn't have been making this decision, but I was a first generation college graduate.
Mhm.
So I had to do it on my own. I had to do the research on my own. And so at 18, I decided I'm going to go to this school because I can afford it. That if I had to get a job,
Mm.
and it saddens me that I was 18 having to make these decisions, but I didn't, nobody knew.
Right.
Um, but I said, if I get a job, I may be able to swing this. If nothing comes open, if the financial aid doesn't come through, then I may be able to afford this school. So I chose out of the 4 and that's not where my heart wanted. My heart wanted to go. I really wanted to go to Howard University. That's
Okay.
where I wanted to go. I was accepted at Howard, Clemson, Spelman, and Georgia Southern.
Okay.
So those were the four schools I applied to. I got accepted all four. And I really wanted to go to Howard, but I said, if I go to Howard, and I'm thinking about this at 18, so that's why I guess I was a little mature. Um, if I come out of school, I may have a lot of debt. So I chose Georgia Southern
Okay.
to, with the help of my teacher in high school,
Mhm.
saying, I had a great business program, XYZ. And I came out of school owing $1,750.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I saved up my money. I was like, okay. And the first year at 18, now we're really telling our age because I paid out of pocket. So I saved up my money and I paid out of pocket my freshman year, the money that I had saved up myself. So I was thinking about what it would look like when I graduate. At 18, I thought about that. And so I chose that school because of the cost.
Mm-hmm.
And now when I look back on it, no regrets. Oh my God, no regrets at all. I
Yeah.
was able to, join my sorority, but no regrets about going there, and it was affordable. So, and then I went on and got my master's degree, and somebody else paid for that. So that's what I mean. We don't need to. We have options. We have junior college. We don't, as much as our hearts are into some of the schools
Mm-hmm.
that are big ticket schools, it hurts us later.
Yeah.
And so parents need to have these crucial conversations with their kids, saying, what is that going to look like when you graduate?
Right. Right. And you have to have that conversation. Let me tell you something I just found out. I didn't know. I found it out a couple of months ago. Um, when you're out of state student, it's more than in-state student.
Yes.
But how you can become an in-state student is for you to find housing and pay bills for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And once you establish residency,
Yes.
then now you are an in-state student and your tuition drops drastically.
Yes.
And I was blown away at that. And there's that I really believe, Terrell, that the help is out there, the information, the knowledge is out there. When Damari was senior in high school, I used to tell her, there's scholarships everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do the
Crazy,
work.
tiny scholarships everywhere.
You
Yeah.
have to do the work. And once I think she got to her third essay, she started to get what I was telling her. Because if you can get past that third one or that fourth one, it's really easy breezy.
And you can
And
use the same essay.
it really is. And then she started winning scholarships, right? And that helped with her tuition, her books, and now, but you're right. We as parents have to start having these conversations with our children at a young age. And if we don't know, we need to go to somebody
Yeah.
and have these conversations. Now, let me ask you this question, because we talked about credit score, we talked about utilization rate, we talked about your financial picture as a whole. But and I'm gonna touch on this because you mentioned this in the book, but they got to get the book. But I just want you to touch on this. You can, whatever your credit situation is today, you can change it.
Yes.
You don't have to hire anybody. You just got to put in the work.
You got to put in work.
You got to.
Everybody don't want to put in the work. Some people are like, I'm just going to pay somebody else to do that, and that's okay. But you don't have to.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I wrote the book, I taught, that's the very intro of why I wrote the book, was I went to this. It was a Wealth and Wine event in Atlanta. I didn't say where it was, but it was a wine store in Buckhead. And I went because the guy that was doing the presentation, he was going to, talk about, I think it was an insurance presentation, but I was nosy and wanted to see what this wine store looked like. And of course, I'm always open to hearing, wealth presentations. So I went to the presentation, and then apparently he had someone else that was hosting his event, and she was a real estate agent, and she started talking about, the real estate market in Atlanta. And then she started selling this whole, trying to recruit the audience for this. It was basically a multi-level marketing credit repair thing.
Mhm.
Anybody could do it. And I'm like, this woman is up here, more concerned about recruiting, getting people on her team than helping. And
Mhm.
it rubbed me the wrong way. It
Mhm.
really did. And I'm like, you're when you're selling that, you're playing on the vulnerable emotions of someone who has struggled
Mhm.
with their credit.
Right.
And I wrote the book because I was a little ticked off. And I'm not going to knock anybody's hustle, because
Right.
everyone has their hustle,
Mhm.
but are you really trying to help, or are you really trying to recruit?
Right.
And I felt like she was just trying to recruit.
Mhm.
And so that's why I wrote the book, because I'm like, I can show these people how to get 800 credit score. And I'm really proud of that work, because I've gotten national reviews on the book. Kirkus
Oh,
Reviews
wow.
has said some great things. Publishers Weekly's Book Life gave me A on the
Mhm.
book. And I got a lightning bolt, meaning that it was a the reviewer's choice book. So yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm really proud of the book, because I really know that it will help. It's
right.
going to help someone.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before about a budget. And I've had a CPA on this show. I've had a bookkeeper on this show.
Uh-huh.
You're the third person that has come on this show and talked about a budget. So let's talk a little bit. Just tell how important is it for us to create a budget for our finances?
I it's very important, because you need to be in control of your money. You need to direct and guide your money. And I believe in zero-based budgeting. And what I mean by zero-based budgeting is that every single penny has a home. And I do a budget every single month. I review it, I rewrite it, everything every single month. If something's coming up, I'll include it in my budget. And I
Mhm.
tell my kids, if you come to me for money after I've already done my budget, you're gonna have to wait. 'Cause it wasn't in my it wasn't in my budget, and they were even line items in my budget. I was like, you need to wait, because you can't come to me at the last minute,
Yeah.
because I've already done my budget for the month. But it's important that we steer our money, because
Mhm.
if you don't steer and guide and direct your money, it goes poof.
Right.
The proverbial donut hole. Poof, there's your money. It goes up in smoke, and we don't know
Yes.
where it goes. But most people will find that when they do a budget, they find money. Then there's money there to invest. You start investing and in saving and putting that investing and savings on automatic. There's money there, but we just don't want to do a budget.
Right.
Yeah, there are situations where, like, you realize that I need to go get another job because I don't have enough cash flow coming
Right.
in. And
Right.
that happens. But if you did a budget, you will realize that my expenses exceed my income.
Right.
And I truly believe, I tell my clients and people that I work with, is that wealth is created in the gap.
Mhm.
Wealth is created in the gap. And what I mean by that is, if your income is here and your expenses are here, there's no disposable money.
Okay.
But if your income is here and your expenses are down here, then in this gap, you can create wealth. You can use this disposable money in the
Mm.
gap to invest that money. So
Right.
our goal is to have our income here and our expenses here, not income here and expenses up there.
Right.
You want to do this.
Right.
And wealth is created in that gap.
I like that. Wealth is created in the gap.
Yeah.
You talked about finding money. We find the money for things we want to do, good, bad, or indifferent.
Hmm.
People easily say, I don't have the money. Yes, you do.
Yes.
You just don't want to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right.
But I had an aha moment, July 2020. I think I told you about this on Monday. And it amazed me when I talked to my sister-in-law and she challenged me and she was saying the same thing. And within 30 minutes, I found over $2,700.
Wow.
And within 15 minutes of me finding the $2,700, I paid off 6 things.
Wow. See?
And I realized that I was carrying a debt that I could have been paid off, but I was just, paying that monthly, amount every month. And she challenged me, and I was like, I just, it just like you said, it poof, it goes, it just
Yeah.
appeared because I kept my eye on my money.
You got to keep your eye on your money.
You got to keep your eye on your money.
And you know what else too, Tina? People feel, and it's a comfort. People feel I've seen people have thousands of dollars sitting in a checking on the savings account making 0.01%. That's the number now, 0.01.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have a debt over here that they have the cash to pay off, and they'll just continue to pay it monthly, paying it down. They may have a double digit interest rate on a credit card, and they have the cash in the account. But it's that comfort of knowing that I have this money in the bank, not knowing that it's really costing them.
Right.
They're losing. And people feel comfortable knowing that I got the money in the bank. So they will continue to pay off monthly a debt that is costing them thousands of dollars.
Right. And you know what? It's just having a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
About your money, a
Yeah.
different viewpoint. Terrell, thank you so much for joining us. I want to tell everybody her latest book is Secrets of the 800 Plus Club: How to Raise Your Credit Score, Maintain Good Credit, and Live the Life of Unicorns. I want you to have a unicorn conference.
Everybody with their horns. Yes.
I'm telling you, I am. Look, thank you.
You're welcome.
When you actually had the pre-orders, I got mine. I finished reading it, and it sits by my bed. I'm telling everybody, it's an easy read,
and it's a workbook. It's a workbook.
It's a workbook, yeah, and it's fun to read. And so go to onebucketnation.com. That's onebucketnation.com and pick up Terrell's book. But we have a giveaway, and I know we're a little bit over our time, so just hold on. Now, I have some autographed books from Terrell that we're going to be giving away. But this is what you have to do. You have to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then I want you to come back. We're either on the YouTube channel today broadcast or on the Facebook live broadcast. I want you to tell us some of the nuggets that you took away from some takeaways from today's show. And, did we trigger any thoughts to your remembrance of things, you should have known, or you might have known, you forgot? Or did she tell you something new? We want you to put that in the comments. So you need to, number one, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then number two, leave us a comment. Leave us a comment. And then I'll be drawing some people because we have some autographed books from One Bucket Nation. This is her. We were talking about doing it the opposite way. This one, One Bucket at a Time, is her first book. And then this one is her latest book. Terrell, thank you so much for saying yes. Before we go, though, I want to say if you want to leave any last words for the viewers.
I just want to reiterate. You can change. No, I know what I want to say. And I'm quoting you because this is so important. It was a tweetable moment. You said, applied knowledge. Okay, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is transformational. That is super duper powerful. Applied knowledge is transformational. So you're not going to see any changes until you apply what you've learned tonight and what you learn in Secrets of the 800 Plus Club.
Right. You got to apply it. And they're easy, obtainable steps. Nothing hard. Just be disciplined, and know that your future is bright, right? And we don't want to get into the rat race of money and materialism, because I'm telling you, freedom is financial freedom. I'm telling you, the weight would be lifted once you know the secrets, the dirty little secrets in chapter 8, I'm telling you, the financial freedom is undescribable. And I'm so glad that I'm on that road. I'm going to get there. It's going to give me a couple of years because I'm on my way. I'm telling you, I'm on my way now. But when you have that conference, I want my unicorn. Everybody, we just thank you so much for viewing tonight's show. I'm Tina Dawson, your host, and we were with Terrell Dinkins with One Bucket Nation. She's the founder of One Bucket Nation, and we were talking about her new book, or her latest book, Secrets of the 800 Plus Club. You can purchase it at onebucketnation.com. We are here live every Wednesday at 7 p.m., and we will see you next Wednesday, same time, same place. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.